Hi everyone and welcome back to the Weeknight YouTube channel. My name is Jennifer Dominic. I am the founder of Weeknight and I'm also going to be your interviewer for today. For those of you who are joining the Weeknight channel for the first time, we are a social enterprise and we interview people with various career paths that either have a background in STEM or currently are working in a STEM related industry. So today we're super excited about our guest. I actually went to university with him for about a year before both our paths went in completely different directions, but we found ourselves doing a little bit of what we love and still connected to the same industry. So I am very excited to introduce you today to Rosdip. Right. Hi Rosdip, really lovely to have you on here today. Without any further ado, I'd love to introduce you to our guest. Tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here with us today. So welcome to the Weeknight channel. Thank you for taking your time to join us today. Before we get started, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
Hi Jennifer, thanks for having me. I am feeling good. I had a lovely, restful bank holiday weekend. And so, yeah, it's right. It's good to be back into work and swing of things and to have this conversation with you today. So, yeah, I feel very positive.
Yeah, super excited. Really been looking forward to this conversation. I think because there's parts of our paths that have crossed over at certain points. So without further ado, let's take everyone along on this journey of yours till date. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're currently doing.
Sure. So my name is Rosdip. I am originally from Nepal and currently what I do, so I am the program manager at NHS Select. It's an organization, as the name says, it's part of NHS. And what I do, part of my role, I guess, short and sweet, is I manage, the design and delivery of programs to help support the workforce of NHS at a national level, and that includes multiple programs. And one of the programs, as an example, is so I'm working on children and young people with mental health, learning disability, and autism. So I'm kind of working on a digital platform to support nurses, doctors, and any healthcare professionals supporting those children and young people. So in a nutshell, that's my role in NHS.
Okay, and how long have you been doing that?
That is a good question. So actually, I moved sectors. So within NHS, I've only been just under a year, and it's been quite a steep learning and enjoyable process. So yeah.
Okay, that's a really good transition. So maybe we can talk a little bit about why it's been a steep learning. Perhaps you can take us on that journey of what a day in your current role looks like.
Sure. Well, I think talking about the steep learning process, so I was previously working in a completely non-healthcare sector. So I was doing some fundraising. I'm happy to touch on that. And I did that for just over 4 years. And, yourself and I go back. So I come from a science health background. So there's always that passion that I wanted to move into healthcare. And so I did make that transition eventually. And so I've been in NHS for under a year. And yeah, because it's a new sector, it's a new landscape. And, the whole NHS it's very broad. When I say NHS, yeah, it touches on so many different aspects. So just in that kind of, holistic learning, it's been very steep and it's been very rapid. But as I mentioned, enjoyable process. In terms of what I do, was that one of your questions? So I've already talked about kind of managing design and delivery of programs. So, let me give you a brief kind of example of what I do in a week. So take an example of the children, young people with mental health, learning disability, and autism. So, in a week, I get to talk to a lot of clinicians. So I work very closely with nurses and doctors, kind of bringing in their clinical expertise, in terms of, so we have a digital platform. And so the digital platform has loads of resources for these healthcare professionals to train them, for them to access rapidly when they're dealing with these children, young people. So kind of working very closely with the clinicians to bring on those resources, but also I do a lot of data evaluation. So using data analytics to see how well our platform is doing, what our users are telling us. So there's a lot of data harnessing work that I do over the week as well, which I really enjoy, and that's kind of focused on my background as well. And then a lot of presentation and calls. So on a day-to-day, just building an awareness of the platform, talking to various stakeholders across NHS to get their buy-in, their knowledge, that we can also again bring into building that platform further. So yeah, it's very dynamic and ever-changing. Life in a week. Yeah. So in a nutshell, those are kind of like the three main things I normally focus on.
So you put on three things that are really popular, I think, in today's culture in terms of the kinds of careers people want to integrate with. So you've spoken a little bit about healthcare, which is obviously something that's very forefront. I hear a lot of tech, so data harnessing, the website, having to provide information, seeing the trends probably of where people are going, the kind of information they're looking for to help you to support and make decisions. And then on top of that, you're managing programs. And I guess some people may better understand programs as projects, but essentially it's like various projects, I guess, can come under like an overarching program that you're managing. So it's quite a multifaceted role that you've got.
Yeah, no, and you've articulated it so well. I probably didn't. And that's exactly why I really enjoy the kind of variation in the work that I do. And there's that data side of things, which is so vast again, and you can get into the black hole. But I try to be very kind of focused in terms of what data do we need to use, how do we use, and what, what are the useful data that we need to bring in. So it is very holistic in that sense. I would say.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And then you mentioned that prior to transitioning back into healthcare or working with healthcare professionals within the NHS, there were aspects of the experience you have today that you have done, but in another area or field. So maybe are you able to backtrack a little bit into what you studied? Because you mentioned about science, what your intentions were at the time when you kind of first chose the subjects that you wanted to go for, and just take us through your scenic route about how you kind of ended up here, and then let's get excited and see how straightforward or how wiggly the path must have been.
Absolutely. More than happy to kind of extend on that. And I love the fact that you call it scenic route. It definitely wasn't. I'm sure many of us can relate to that, right? It's never linear. It's very ups and downs and different kind of trajectory. Anyways, I think so. In terms of my academia, I started off with bioscience, and I kind of wanted to maybe even further actually. So I mentioned very briefly that I come from Nepal. Moving here, I didn't know very much about courses. So all you know about is medicine, engineering, those very typical traditional courses. So I kind of wanted to, but I always enjoyed science. And so I wanted to take on that journey of going to a science related course. And so I started with bioscience, but I wanted to go into more medical side of sector. So I kind of moved on to and completed a biomedical science degree, thinking that I would be a medical scientist, and that's how I would want to contribute to the society and make a positive impact. But actually, it was my second year when I was doing. So we had to do a mini dissertation, which is very lab focused, and that was a big realization that actually I don't want to be a scientist because I don't want to spend my life, in that life. It was just not for me. And I have so much respect for a lot of scientists, who do that. And so, yeah, I was weighing out different career options. I will tell you, I've gone to every single different career sector. Even there was patent attorney, which is very much a lawyer, but from a science background. Or there was clinical scientist, which is, as the name says, you're a scientist, but with a more clinical focus. So you could be an embryologist, audiologist, all that sort of things. But actually, as I was going through that route, I just kind of fell through my passion with science. So I thought, actually, I started doing a lot of volunteering and charity work. So that's how it brought me to the fundraising sector. And so that was essentially me kind of generating, funds for NGOs and charitable organizations. So that brought me to my first job after university, which I was immediately able to get. But actually, it was for a big top business school, so London Business School. I worked there for 4 years, and many takeaways, but the main thing was the stakeholder relationships, so building those strategic relationship with different stakeholders. I think that was a key takeaway for me, and I think I've really been able to kind of bring that with me along into healthcare. And I mentioned I do a lot of presentations. I have a lot of communications and connections with doctors and nurses, and that has been a very pivotal for me when making that transition. So yeah, that just is a very quick flavor of my journey from Nepal to the UK, and then from science to non-science, and then back into healthcare. So yeah, it's been, yeah, as I mentioned, it's definitely not been a linear journey, but one that I don't think I would have it any other way. What do you think?
No, I definitely think it's been a roller coaster. Similar for me. I haven't necessarily ventured completely out of like a science sector, so to speak, but I think the skills or that I thought I would use versus how I'm utilizing them in my day-to-day role has certainly changed. So moving very much from, as you said, like in lab work, I guess what they might call like a bench scientist, to, okay, there's a clinical element, but even then you're not necessarily the person at the forefront doing the activities. But very similar to you, I think, working with a lot of healthcare professionals, because there's a whole industry, isn't it, that kind of spans around supporting the core of the healthcare system and the people who are front facing, and they need a lot of things in order for them to be able to kind of do the jobs that they need to do to the best of their abilities. So I think that's something that I really, really enjoy, actually. So a bit like you in a different way, but I really find that it gives me breath, actually, to be able to speak to different professionals, hear different perspectives. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know if I would have had the same kind of perspective had I kind of gone straight and done the role, basically like really frontline. And but yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I completely agree. So a question for you, you mentioned that you worked at the London Business School, so that's an academic setting. What's it like, I guess, working somewhere like that, and then now working within the role that you're currently working at, for someone who might want to understand a little bit about the difference?
So it is different in many ways. I think different in the sense that it's a different sector. It's the fundraising that I used to do, and now it's program management, and it's digital platforms and programs. So it's different in that sense, but also that it was academia and now it's healthcare. I guess the key differences, I would say, so some of the areas that I had exposure to whilst I was at London Business School was, so we would have loads of fundraising events. So these are like very high flagship events that we would get to attend, and it was a lot of face-to-face, and kind of building that very meaningful relationship. But also I think the purpose of doing that was slightly different, in that we were raising funds for, let's say, scholarships, to provide scholarships to these talented students, but but didn't necessarily have those fundings to come to do their postgraduate. So a lot of MBAs, masters, other master programs. So and other areas would be for like to invest in research, capital projects. So it was a very different purpose compared to what I do now, which is more kind of clinical, which is also purposeful in a different way. So I guess that's the kind of key difference for me, at least. And I've already touched on kind of like the sector difference. So yeah, absolutely different, but very transferable skills. But I think the similarity is that I still get to work with a wonderful team, and it's a team-wide purpose. So we're all working towards that one goal, and I think that is something that I see very much, that similarity between when I was at London Business School and my current team, that we're all driven towards one purpose, and we all come together to do that. And so there's that similarity, I would say.
That's awesome. And now that you've kind of found this new path, what would you say in your experience today is, let me rephrase that actually. So in this new path that you found, when you think about diversity and inclusion, what role do you think that plays in your current industry, and how important do you think it is?
I think it absolutely is important and pivotal in any sector, right? I think larger corporations have come a long way, and still there's loads of work to kind of do in terms of honing on that equality, diversity, inclusion, the EDI terminology that we use quite proactively, and just using your platform that you've created. I think it's so incredible, Jen, and I think I touched on, maybe I'm going slightly off tangent, but I touched on why my journey was not so straightforward is because we didn't have mentors and people to look up to, and there wasn't much visibility in whether that's in workplace or whether that's outside the workplace. When I moved here, I only knew about sectors like medicine and engineering. I didn't know about program project management, to even have that visibility of a career, and I would have only known that through people, if I had people to look up to, people that looked like myself or yourself, and so having professionals from Asian, Black, and people of color in the workplace is so important because to create that visibility, to create that leadership positions where younger generations can look up to and have that transparency of like what they can aspire to, right? And so just from that standpoint, I think it's very important on that diversity and inclusion. But beyond that, I think it just should be a natural kind of way of working in large organizations and small.
I love what you said.
That's my take on. What do you think?
No, I love what you said there. Representation is important, right? Because it was similar for me when I came into, when we both went to Christchurch, kicking off on that bioscience course. I think for me, I also had limited understanding. So whilst I was doing the degree, I kind of thought, I'll probably just find another way back into medicine in the future. And the more I learned and the more I tried to find the path that was right for me, I found it really difficult because, as you say, you don't get to see as many people, and being in the corporate world now, it almost feels like there's two separate worlds. So you almost have like a pipeline of students studying, really motivated, and then on the other side you've got all these professionals doing what they need to do, and like it doesn't quite come together. And so what you do is you kind of lose out on all of these diverse talent that's coming through because they're not aware. And so, as you said, that's one of the things I hope to try and achieve with this platform. Really, in a way, it was to meet new people, doing different things, but also just share the journeys of others that I've met along the way doing amazing things, and hopefully that can inspire other people to see that there are different things and there are other options in which they're able to grow and still do things that they love. So I completely agree with you that what you see, you can be what you can see, and it's important for people to see. So I hope that as anyone watches this and they see us, that they're encouraged actually and really, really motivated.
No, absolutely. And you've actually, if I may, Jen, you've actually brought a memory back to me, and just this takes back to the university times. I would go to these career fairs and actually just touching on the diversity and inclusion and bringing a diverse talent. Predominantly, I would not see, you have those career stalls, and you would have representatives from different organizations, and you do an incredible job yourself going to these back at Crashes as well. I follow your journey. But back then, I didn't really see many people of color at those stalls, and so it's like, who do I aspire to be, and what are these sectors that I want to go into, because I can't really relate. And so by having more diversity of talents, I think is so important. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's the sole job to bring them to those career stalls at universities, but that's just an example, by having more diversity in the workplace, you will have representation in so many different levels and ways, and university career stalls being one of them, and just that kind of visibility, and then having that understanding from the other side, I think is so important. Why we need to focus more on diversity and inclusion.
You take me to my next point, which you've probably already covered. But for anyone watching this is obviously something you volunteered your time to do. It's quite personal, to share your career journey, a little bit about what you're doing. So we're really grateful that you've kind of committed your time to do it. Is there anything you want to say to anyone who's watching your journey, and they're seeking inspiration from the path that you've taken that we've not already covered?
Wow. Well, let me say thanks to you as well, because you've allowed me this opportunity to kind of come and share my story, and hopefully create that visibility about what I do in another sector that I'm working in. I guess I would say, everybody's journey is special and unique to every individual, because everybody has different background and different upbringing, and actually that is bespoke to themselves. So I don't think there's one size fits all, but I would just say, keep an open mind and keep going. And what I mean by that is, keep exploring I think is a better term. And I say that from my personal experience, where I've kind of dabbled into so many different sectors. I researched, didn't work for me. I did biomedical science lab as it didn't work for me, and now I've landed this sector, and I'm very happy. So it's kind of that keep exploring bit, start off somewhere. You have to start somewhere to get somewhere. So start, but keep exploring, and if it's not working, I always say this to myself: you're not a tree. You're not stationary. You can always move and thrive. And so as long as you start and keep exploring, I think you will get there. And it doesn't matter if it's not straightforward journey. And if anything, that actually strengthens your experience, your confidence, and the way you kind of deal with both professionally, but more importantly, personally, at your personal space as well. So I think, keep start somewhere, but keep exploring.
You're not a tree, so you can move. I like that.
Yeah, I said that to myself. You're like, why? Yeah, that's my analogy.
Yeah, and so with that, where do you think you might move to next?
Ooh, I would say, so I'm quite happy with where I am, at life and with my professional setting especially. So I do want to, stay in NHS and kind of see where that takes off. But interestingly, I think having an exposure from being at London Business School, I sort of have an understanding of what an MBA can kind of do. So that's something I'm considering, going to a business school at some point in life. May or may not happen, but a consideration, just to sort of, extend my network professionally, but also really kind of want to continue exploring what other sectors are, and just really, continue with that drive, because I know, certainly from my experience being at London Business School, I know the exposure that an MBA gives you. but I know it's very expensive to go to business school. So maybe I'll have to reach out to my previous colleague who might be doing fundraising for a scholarship.
That's really exciting. I've heard lots of great things about MBAs. So if you do go down that direction, or if it's another one, I think would be very interested in seeing how your journey would have changed in a few years. But I hope that this also provides a snapshot of your journey at a point in time. So it'd be super cool to watch back in the future and see where you are now and where you thought you were going to go, and see how that route continues to develop over time. So with that, I'll just use this opportunity, Rosdip, to say thank you once more for taking the time to come here and share your career's insight. We were super, super excited to have you, and I'm sure that our viewers will learn so much from you today. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for having me.